Welcome to We're Gonna Run It with Joe Lisi and Terry Bowden.
You're listening to
We're Gonna Run It.
What's your game plan?
Can they run, but will they run? If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
Cutlass. We're gonna run it.
We're gonna play blue collar. Enjoy it. I said it. Have a little heart and have some stones.
We're gonna run it.
If you want to throw an RPO, you got to run first, pass second. That's why it's not called a PRO. It's an RPO. You got to start with a running game that puts people on their heel.
Take a look at my algo. His algo is used with all data from last year. You're so smart, you're stupid.
We're gonna run it.
And the people that believe that talking head are even stupider than what I thought. I said it.
If you want to run the ball, you got to give it to a guy that's a running back.
You got no shot to get back into the series. No shot. I said it. What's your game plan?
We're gonna run it.
We are going to run it straight into week number 8 of the college football season. Joe Lisi and Coach Terry Bowden breaking down all the action. Coach, it's been a long week. We were on air, and the news broke about Kirk Cignetti. Not only is he going to be in Bloomington for the next 8 seasons, potentially, but he really broke the bank with a $93 million extension, 11.6 per year. Penn State might not get their guy because Kirk Cignetti is staying in Indiana.
Yeah, I think the Indiana made a wise choice there. They knew they had a guy. They got a guy at the right time. They went after a guy that was at James Madison, coming out of Elon and IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and they did some good research. I've known Kirk Cignetti for a long time. His dad was my head coach at West Virginia. His dad was my dad's offensive coordinator for my father at West Virginia before that. And Kurt is a brilliant he's a brilliant coach. His dad was a brilliant offensive coach, and Kurt is the same thing. And Indiana is fortunate. And I believe if he sits right there, if you don't get complacent or whatever it is you get, he's smart enough and he's good enough at what he does. He can make them an established power in the Big Ten. It's kind of like Bill Snyder went to Kansas State. They were nothing for 40 years, and all of a sudden they became something. And every now and then you get that paradigm shift or whatever it is you have. And I think Indiana just made the move that's going to change the future of their program.
I agree 100%. I think obviously the win over top-ranked Oregon,
Right.
a team that was dominant in Eugene under Dan Lanning, you get that victory and how they made second-half adjustments, basically shutting down that high-powered attack and in the second half to no
Right.
yards, basically no points, dominant effort, and you could see the progression. This wasn't the same team that it was last year that got knocked around by Ohio State and Notre Dame. They were the more physical group, and credit Kurt Cignetti because he got 2 quarterbacks in back-to-back years with Curtis Rourke from Ohio and this year Fernando Mendoza from Cal that were plug-and-play guys. And we see a ton of big schools, most notably Penn State and some of the others that try their hands at recruiting transfer talent at multiple positions, and sometimes it doesn't pan out. For Indiana, the recruiting aspect and noting players that fit their scheme immediately to pay dividends is another reason why he got an eight-year deal.
Well, and you got to remember now, a lot can be said for the guy that's put the system in, the offensive system in, because it's not just about getting the right quarterback. It's having something to plug them into.
Right.
And I think that's what you're going to see there. And I believe because of Kirk Cignetti's background, I want to say he was a quarterback. We went to Morgantown High School. I want to say he was a quarterback, and I know his brother Frankie Cignetti has been an NFL quarterback coach for a long, long time, and so he knew what he was looking for. But I also think he puts that quarterback in a system that gives that guy a chance to be successful. And you notice, I think he's averaging 261 yards a game rushing. Yep. He understands that if you want a great quarterback to be great, give him a running attack.
I agree. And hey, it goes right into the theme of our show. We're going to run it. The reason why it's important, it's breaking news with Kurt Cignetti, but it's also important how it affects some of these programs moving forward. Some of these teams, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss has always been mentioned with some of these huge jobs. Penn State, and obviously, when Kalen DeBoer was potentially not hired with Alabama, he was in the mix, and you never know with that situation. Auburn's hot. We talked about it potentially some of these other schools. Billy Napier,
Right.
there were reports that he could be fired by the end of the weekend. So from a preparation standpoint, we talked about Manny Diaz, huge game against Georgia Tech. Mindset wise, and I want to get your take on it because it does affect how these games play out, potentially preparation, not just for the players, but the staffs as well. Give me your thoughts just overall about the preparation going into these top 25 matchups.
Well, I think the biggest thing, if you've been a head coach long enough or you've been attractive to other schools, you know how to quickly dispel all the gossip, at least from a standpoint of what you can do. You make one statement, you say, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm interested in nothing but the job I am. That's where I want to coach, period. Put it to bed. Don't talk about it again. Your players see that. Your school sees that. Who knows what agents behind the scenes are doing? It's one of those, I want to be here as long as they want me here. But the key is don't let it linger and you shut it down and then get focused on your game.
Right.
If you're doing a good job, it's like Manny Diaz. He's been through the good and the bad now.
Right.
And so he's not going to get overwhelmed by these type of things, but it can be a distraction because your assistant, when I was a head coach, and I was a head coach for 28 years, when my assistant coaches start closing their door, I know there's conversations going on that don't need to be going on during the season because every coach wants to have an open door policy. When you're having to shut that door so nobody can hear your conversation, you better get back to what you're supposed to be doing, which is getting ready for the next ball game.
That's a great point. So, we talk about the big name coaches, and I guess, Kiffin is obviously in that mix.
Everywhere.
Manny Diaz, Signetti was until this morning when he signs the deal. Matt Rule, another guy, veteran guys that have been around. So to your point, I guess the other coaches at the group of five, like Alex Golish at USF, Ryan Silverfield at Memphis, that's undefeated this year. So all of a sudden now they have that train in motion. But now, hey, when you're looming at maybe potentially 10 million or 11 million or you're making X and all of a sudden you could make 4 times that, that's where it could affect the potential coaching staff. So is that what you're saying outside the veteran staffs?
Yeah, I mean, what I guess what I'm saying is you can't do a thing right now or right when it begins to happen. Focus on what you're doing. You can't do a thing about it. Back when I was coaching in the SEC, even for my father's 34-year history at Florida State, the salaries never went over $1.52 million a year. That was the highest. And that's 30 years ago, but it never went. Now it's gotten to be where it shakes things up a little bit. Now I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it a little bit as just an old ball coach, But the key is publicly put it to bed as fast as you can. And get back to do what you ask your kids to do. Your kid's got a girlfriend that broke up with him. Your kid's got the problems in the classroom. Get that off your mind during football game and get focused on the game and get locked in. A head coach at least has to be able to do the same thing.
I agree with that. So let's just look, because you and I talked about this SEC slate this week.
Right.
And I mean, if you're a purist, I mean, these games are fantastic. LSU, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, South Carolina, obviously, the rivalry, A&M, Arkansas. I just love that game each and every. And the fact that it's a home and home now is even better because they were playing it on the neutral. Georgia, is there one game in the conference that stands? I mean, Miss State, Florida, that's important, I guess, just because of Napier if he does lose it. Texas, Kentucky, but obviously the third Saturday in October, Tennessee, Alabama. Out of those, the big games, which one intrigues you?
Historically, that Tennessee Alabama game intrigues me. Georgia and Ole Miss, and Tennessee, Alabama are probably the two biggest ones as far as. And I almost have to throw in at LSU and Vandy because Vandy has gotten to be a factor. And you almost have to throw that one in because LSU is in that hunt. But the other two that I mentioned, historically, there is no bigger game than the third Saturday in October, which is Tennessee, Alabama. Always has been. I've kind of been a history student of the game in the South because I grew up the son of a football coach in the South, studied the history of Alabama football, Auburn football, Tennessee football, Georgia, Georgia Tech, Bobby Dodd, the great coaches of the old days, and how these programs came up. But there has been no bigger, better, badder rivalry through the 50s, the 60s than Tennessee, Alabama. And that's a good one coming up. And it ought to be a great game. And then Ole Miss, what Lane Kiffin's done at Ole Miss. And I know his name's going to come up. I just want he used to encourage it, I think, because he was Southern Cal, Tennessee,
Right.
NFL, the Raiders. But I think he seems to be awful happy in Ole Miss. And I know they're happy with him.
And that's the thing. We had talked, if it was a 4-team playoff,
Right.
I think Lane would entertain bigger and better. Same thing with Lanning and some of the other coaches. But the fact that we have a 12-team playoff where you could still be in Oxford, still collect a double-digit salary, meaning 9-10 million, have incentives to make the college football playoff, and you have that train in motion, why would you leave that?
That's
right? I mean, that's what it is. If I've already got it, kids want to play for Lane because, hey, look at Jackson Dart on the next level.
Right.
Look at now Trinidad Chambliss. If Trinidad Chambliss all of a sudden becomes a top 5 pick in the NFL draft in the coming years, all these kids are going to want to play for him.
Yeah, now, and here's the interesting point that we have to remember. If you're a spokesperson for Ohio State, for Alabama, Nick Saban, they can't stand this portal thing. You can't stand this NIL thing.
Right.
Why? Because you had all the cards. You had the best history. You had the best tradition. You had the best facilities. Nobody could touch you. Now you take a school that's got a stadium half the size like Ole Miss, but you got a hungry school. You got a booster or a group that's willing to pay the price, and all of a sudden, for the right NIL, they can get every player you used to get because of who you were. It flipped Texas Tech, Virginia, Vanderbilt. All of a sudden, it changes everything from, you know what, I don't have to leave Indiana. I'm going to build me a team here that I could never have built because they would have gone to Ohio State or they'd have gone to Notre Dame. They would not have come to Indiana to play football. Well, throw some NIL in there and jump in the portal, get the right ones, and all of a sudden you start winning. Shoot, you're going to find out a lot of guys out of high school are going to want to go play football in Indiana.
And winning is infectious, right?
Yes.
So for those fan bases in Oxford and Bloomington and some of the smaller schools that, just to your point now, Texas Tech and Lubbock, right? I mean, they're doing it. The money's coming in. They're seeing those rewards from that money.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're like, hey, bigger is better. Why? Well, let's pump more in. Let's get more. And that's where I think you're right. To your point about Nick and some of the older coaches, Nick was just used to, hey, you want to play on the next level? Come to Alabama.
That's right. Come play for me. Yeah.
Right. And you didn't have to, and we knew that, from the SMU days and even beyond that, money was always going around. But now it's an open checkbook, depending upon, and every kid's on TV now. Every kid's getting notoriety and exposure. So why leave if you're close to home and you have roots in the school or the organization? No need to leave. I will say I am intrigued the most out of all the games in the SEC. The one that intrigues me the most, and I know the big ones are Bama and Tennessee, and Ole Miss and Georgia, and those have the biggest conference and national championship repercussions. But this LSU Vanderbilt game has me dialed in. I mean, you go back. We talked about it. Vanderbilt not favored in the series dating back to like 1948. I mean, they've lost 10 straight. They've lost 10 straight to LSU. The last 4 by an average margin of defeat of 23.2 points per game. LSU rocking the white helmets for this game, Coach. White helmets. This is the old Joe Burrow white helmets. We'll see. Speed, I think, will be a factor if LSU covers this game, meaning on the outside. Trey Green, the tight ends, Bauer Sharp, Aaron Anderson comes back. I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, based off of what I saw last week, and I know the rushing attack got going with a $168 against South Carolina and 6 yards. Something tells me they're going to air it out against Vanderbilt to open up the run. Do you see that as a potential game plan?
Well, for most teams that are balanced, you've got to throw it to open up the run. That's why you can't say, okay, we're going to go out there and establish the run. If you run it every first down, then by the third first down, you're going to get 9 people on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
And now you've got to go like 60-40. You got to run, pass, decide. I called it pass, run, decide, run, pass, decide. When I say decide whether your third down, whether to run or pass. So it's for a while, you got to keep them guessing. The only down the defense does not have an advantage is first down. They have no idea because you got the same thing every time. And so when you want to establish the run, what you've got to do is make sure you mix in some pass. Now, I don't care whether it's 50-50 or 60-40 run to pass, but it needs to be in there enough so that defense is playing on their heels a little bit and not on their toes. Because when they're playing on their toes and when they're getting, we call it leverage. When the defensive guy is lining up inside of the offensive guy that has to block him, that's run game leverage. That means you've got the run. If you line up outside or over top deep, you've got pass game leverage. And so what you got to be careful is when defenses start putting 9 up there, you got to throw the ball. So it's got to be a mix. LSU, if they're going to run it effectively, they just need to keep the running game mixed in and not be impatient. We said that about Clemson earlier in the season, that even when they were throwing well, they wouldn't run the ball even when they could. You've got to make yourself do it because it's going to hurt you down the road.
Now, typically in years past and even, earlier in the season, the athleticism at the quarterback position has been a problem for LSU. Trinidad Chambliss, Lenora Sellers at times last week broke contain, but they battered him because they were just completely one-dimensional on third down. Lenora Sellers got a pressure rate, highest rate last week of quarterback pressures. He was beaten early and often, and credit Blake Baker. When you look at LSU's run defense right now, they're only giving up about 3 yards per carry, 102 yards per game. But again, maintaining that gap integrity, especially in the middle. Not only that, but these ends can't come crashing down on Pavia and look to make plays from the backside. They have to stay home because we know that this Vanderbilt offense utilizes misdirection. That's something that they could get caught on. And they got caught last year with this offense. Even though they won the game by 7, that was a back and forth game in the first quarter. So I still like LSU because of the speed. I like Kelly in this spot. Not going to be easy, but I do feel LSU pulls this game out.
Yeah, it's 2.5 spot. I mean, to me, that's a field goal. When I get down to a field goal or less, I feel like LSU is a better football team. I really think with a system that Vandy has, they've got good misdirection in their running attack. And misdirection quite often is better than just power because there's an old saying that one good fake is better than 2 good blocks. When you get people taking one step the wrong way, that 4-5 guy becomes a 4-7 guy. So the key is to make good misdirection, keep it looking east and west and north and south. So your defense has to be concerned about which way is it really going. That's what you face with Vandy. And you got to be one step ahead of them by stopping them on first down and not let them be one step ahead of you. When I was a young coach at Sanford, we played Delaware. You remember Tubby Raymond and the wing tee football?
I played in a wing tee.
Everybody played the wing tee back then. But what I would say, he was the father of the wing tee, but we played him in the first round of the playoffs. I was on the sideline. I can't figure out where the ball's going. My poor defensive players could. I mean, when you can misdirection and all that thing, that's kind of what you get. They're not a wing tee football team. They're more of a spread option pass team. More like Navy kind of does it. They've had the pass to their option, and boy, they are hard. If you don't have a good handle on it or a good game plan, it can be a lot of problems.
It is, and they love to utilize the inside handoff just the way Navy does, where they broke it against Alabama. And we said, that was going to be a cause of concern for the Crimson Tide.
Right.
Ty Simpson stepped up, and obviously the defense made adjustments. We'll see how this game plays out. I think that if you're LSU, it is critical in this matchup. Score first. You cannot come out flat in this game and allow that crowd and allow that quarterback Pavia to believe that they can knock you off.
That's right.
Again, they have a tendency, LSU, to just, limp through a little bit. It's imperative that Brian Kelly and this team, start fast. Again, we'll see how this offense looks. I'm expecting more in the passing attack. Nussmeier last week, 253, 2-2. And again, they had some chunk plays in the rushing attack. We'll see if it continues this weekend in Nashville. Coach and I both like the LSU Tigers. 10 straight for the Tigers, last 4 by 23.2 points per game. The other big one, we might as well hit it. Alabama, Tennessee. The numbers are staggering.
Yep.
Alabama, 2007 to 2021, dominated the series. They won every game. Tennessee has won 2 of the last 3, both in Knoxville. They won this matchup 24-17 last year. The last win against Alabama in Bryant-Denny, 5 overtimes, 2003, 53-48 or some barn burner like that, 51-45. It was a 51-43 crazy game. I keep asking, and I have to double check that, Coach. Was Brody Kroll the quarterback there? I gotta double check that. But 5 overtimes back in 2003. We know it was Fulmer back then. But give me your thoughts about just what this rivalry means, and can Tennessee hand Alabama only their second home loss dating back to 2020? Because if they can, all the positivity that Kalen DeBoer built up over the last 3 weeks could be completely gone.
That's a credit to the university. That's the level that they expect a coach to compete at, where you don't lose 2 games in a year. You're always in the playoffs. You're always playing for a championship. And Tennessee always became the third weekend of October, the 2 top teams in the old days, just 2 of the premier teams in the South. And that's what you're going to get. Now, Alabama right now with a 15-game home winning streak, I think that's the nation's longest right now. Both teams are on winning streaks. Alabama's won 5 in a row after losing the first one. Tennessee's on 3 in a row. And both of them have quarterbacks that are doing a heck of a job. Now, I think personally, Ty Simpson is a little bit better quarterback when they're both playing well. He's throwing over 70%, 16 touchdowns, only 1 turnover. In a game like this, turnovers will be a huge factor in this football game because I think both teams are going to score. I think it's a style of play that Tennessee has. I'm much more likely to feel like we're going to have a Tennessee-Georgia type game than a 16-23 game. I just believe both teams are going to let loose and know that they've got to score points to win the game. And so I feel like it's going to be like that. But come down to it, that number is too high for me. I think Tennessee will play them close. I think Alabama will win the football game, but it was 8.5. Is it still around 8.5 now?
Yeah, multiple books had 8.5. I have to double check. It was Casey Clausen for Tennessee and Brody Kroll, the quarterback for Alabama. They went into 5 overtimes. Troy Fleming for Tennessee. I mean, some of these names. Dre Fulgham, one of my favorites at the wide receiver position for Alabama. I mean, back in the day, number 3. I mean, I think Freddie Roach was on that team. I have to double check.
I know Freddie.
I love Freddie Roach, number 8 back in the day. I mean,
I want to say he's from Decatur, Alabama, and Brody Kroll, his dad, John Kroll, was a famous player at Alabama 30 years before, 20 years before.
Marvin Constant, I think, was on that team too. I'll go back to memorabilia days. I'll tell you what, we'll see. But, I mean, I think it's important when you look at Joey Aguilar, right? Yeah. Gutty kid, sort of like Pavia a little bit. It wears it on his sleeve. He's blue collar. True road game, though. They haven't played in an environment like this yet. Tennessee. They went. No. They faced Georgia at home. Right. They had week 1 in Atlanta. Okay, but it was Syracuse. Syracuse is a 3-3 football. Right. Yeah. This is a true road environment, which your team hasn't won since 2003. And oh, by the way, you just look at it. And last time you were here, you were catching 8.5. And I know Josh Heupel reminds it. It was a back and forth game, and they still lost it by double digits. Yeah. It is imperative, I think, for Joey Aguilar in this offense. 1, tempo, and 2, for me, you got to win the turnover battle. They don't win the turnover battle.
Oh, no.
Ty Simpson is going to pick them apart.
Yeah, and that's not going to be easy because he's had 16 touchdown passes and only 1 interception the entire year. And so you're going to have to work hard to win that turnover battle. You're going to have to focus on holding onto the ball. Don't take chances on your throws into a crowd. You've got to do this. You got to play smart football to go into Tuscaloosa when you're Tennessee and beat an Alabama team that's on a 5-game running streak right now and playing very, very well. They're on an upward trend. They're playing very well. And right now, well, you can see it. Odds are they're going to win the SEC if you go with the odds. But this is going to be a critical game. So again, I have Alabama win, but I like those numbers. I'm going to take. I would take Tennessee in the 8.5. I get 8.5 because I believe it's going to come down to who scores last or who turns the ball over and gives the other team a score. And I think it's going to be a heck of a ball game in Tuscaloosa.
I want to talk just A&M big picture.
Yeah.
They play Arkansas, right? I like
Right.
Arkansas in the game. I told you that earlier in the week. Again, last 3 games in the series, 6.7 margin of victory by the Aggies. They have won 3 straight. But I told you, I said the fact that it's Petrino and he's dialed into Taylor Green,
Yes.
I'm willing to take the 7.5 because of motivation, right? If it was a DC or an interim GA, I wouldn't be as bought in. But seeing how that that offense performed against Tennessee, I think he could sell it one more game to Taylor Green to potentially buy in. If they lose this game, all bets are off. But could Texas A&M, and I know they can afford a loss. But perception-wise, can they afford this loss if they lose in a rivalry game to Arkansas unranked?
No,
I mean, because they're 4th now, and I have a feeling like if Tennessee knocks off Alabama, there's the potential that Alabama still might be higher than A&M if A&M drops this game to the Razorbacks. I think
Elko, Mike Elko, the head coach, has got his players understanding how big this game is, how big 6-0 is, where they sit right now, and the possibilities. You said, will it hurt them if they lose to Arkansas? Yeah, Arkansas is kind of a lame duck a little bit. They do it. They've got Petrino. He knows what he's doing, but they are one of the worst turnover margins in the country. Their defense is giving up over 30 points a game. They've lost 4 straight, but they're a dadgum good football team, and Taylor Green can get you any time. So with Petrino taking over the reins, the quarterback is very, very dangerous. I think Texas A&M, the thing that I like, and I've kind of jumped on Texas A&M's horse because of the way that when they have to score to win, they score to win. When they have to play defense and win, they've been able to play defense and win. And I think it's starting to they're believing in themselves, and those players now they're buying in to listen. Every game is critical. It's not just the whether you make the SEC championship game, but whether you make the college football playoffs as well. Because in the big scheme of things, the college football playoff may be more important than the conference championship if you were to not get in and still make the playoffs. And so, but right now they're in the driver's seat. They're going to have a chance to line up against everybody. I was going to look at who they play the rest of the season. They
got LSU next.
They got Mizzou. They got LSU and Texas. They got plenty of people they got to beat.
Well, that's why I said perception, right? Yeah. Because they're looked at 4th in the nation.
Right.
They're boat racing everybody now. You talk about number 1 ranked 3rd down defense in the nation, and that's what makes this coach. That when we talk about styles that make fights, right?
Right.
So number 1 ranked 3rd down defense and number 3 ranked 3rd down offense with Arkansas. And Arkansas now went from basically 71%, they're coming down at 57%. But I mean, still to be almost 6 of 10 on every 3rd down with Taylor Green. I mean, and we have 2 of the most explosive quarterbacks in the conference in Marcel Reed and Taylor Green. This game could have fireworks.
It could, and something's got to give. You can't be that good on 3rd downs at Texas A&M and that good on getting third downs at Arkansas, and somebody's got to win or lose that battle. And that's a key battle because anytime, how many times, and I've watched Florida State collapse this year.
Right.
They can't get people off the field. They just can't. Teams, I see too many 12-play drives, and when you got to get people off the field, and you're going to get them into some 3rd downs. And if you're playing, I don't know, it was 1 in 33 the last time I saw.
Yeah,
Texas
that's
A&M.
incredible.
Yeah, they're 2 in 33. They were 1 in 10, 1 in 10, 0 in 13 against Auburn. For 3 SEC schools, they were giving up 2 3rd downs and 33. They stopped them. Quite a statistic, and that's again why they're undefeated right now.
And they weren't like that in the group of out of conference play. UTSA was putting up points. He definitely once the SEC schedule kicked in, to your
Yeah.
point, Elko made adjustments. You're right. I mean, you're right. 0-13 against Auburn, 1-10, 1-10. That's incredible
You
over
know,
the last 3 weeks of the regular
and
season.
if you think about their season, Notre Dame goes down and scores at the end of the game. You think they've got it won,
Right.
and Marcel Reed takes them down one more time,
I
and
know.
that changed everything.
That's
That pass,
incredible.
that touchdown pass that he threw off his back foot, changed everything, and that's why they're 6-0. So anyway, it'll be a good game. I'm going to ride Texas A&M because I kind of feel like they're my dark horse in a lot of ways. Now, I don't think Le'Veon Moss is going to play this week. I think he's out.
Right.
But they've got the Owens. They've got the other back is doing a heck of a good job. And Marcel's a dual threat quarterback, so you don't quite have to have so many running backs in there. And I'm sure they've got a backup that can come in and fill in pretty good. But they've got a couple of great receivers, quarterback, and one of their backs is still there.
I want to get your take before we switch over to the big game for the ACC, and we'll talk Notre Dame USC. You were on the field at Auburn. First time back, you said, since 98.
Mm-hmm.
Perception. Like, we talked about the thoughts about the game, but where they are right now, right? I mean, to lose, it's not the first game, Coach, that they had a controversial call. You know, you can make the argument they could have stole the Oklahoma game. They could have stole the Georgia game. If Hugh Freeze has 2 extra wins on his resume, he's not 500 anymore, right? It looks certainly different than what it looks like right now, and they're sitting at 3-3. Like mindset, just, you know, from your experience last week, what is the fan base and where are they right now entering this matchup against Missouri?
I don't think it's, I mean, and I like Hugh and I hope he can pull it off. I don't think it's positive. I was in that stadium. I was pregame, I was on the field, talked to a lot of coaches, a lot of old coaches that I've known. But once the game started, I was sitting in the stands. And when Auburn fumbled going in to score that could have made it 17-0, not only did it deflate the sideline, you could see the sideline, the emotion, the entire stadium, which was crazy loud, all of a sudden went silent. All of a sudden you hear murmuring. Well, here we go again. Here we go again. And sure enough, the game flipped around. Well, what's happened is when you're not playing real good football, all these little things make a difference. And you can't, well, we lost the game because the officials against Oklahoma. We lost the game because the officials. But if you're the other team, you don't play. If you're a winning team or you find ways to win, you're not looking for all the reasons that you lost. And unfortunately, that's what's going on right now at Auburn. You know, they got too many sacks. They find out in the middle of the week one of their linemen doesn't hear very well. Well, come on now, Gummit. He was born with that probably, and it's a heck of a time to figure that out. So anyway, I think Auburn's the fans are they're not happy.
Right.
And they play Missouri this week. And that people, again, we've said it before, probably the most underrated team in the conference the last 2 or 3 years is Missouri. Great coaching, play great football. I mean, Alabama, it was down to the wire with Alabama. It was down to the wire with Alabama. Their loss to Alabama when they played them. So, again, it's Auburn, I tell you, when you get that negative vibe going in the background, the noise, it's called the noise in the background. Right. It's hard to keep your kids believing they're going to win because the worst thing you can have was when your kids deep down don't think I'm going to find a way to win. They think something's going to happen that makes us lose. And that's it. That sucks in there and that ruins everything.
Yeah, I will say in this game with Missouri coming off the loss to Alabama, I just think it's points. The total is 43.5. And the reason why, as good as that defense for Auburn's been, and we talked about it, 2.5 yards per carry in rush defense, 82 yards per game. You've lost 3 straight where the defense didn't give up anything. It kept you in it. And the offense couldn't help you pull out one game. And I think from a mindset perspective, we're not dealing with NFL players. We're dealing with, even though you might consider them, you're still dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds.
Right.
You just had a major rivalry game. I'm not saying they're not taking Missouri lightly, but it's Missouri. It's not, this isn't Alabama coming to town. It's like, we could bring, I just think there's the potential for that defense to maybe get exposed a little bit more. And that's why I think we get a little more points in this ball game.
Well, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. After what happened last week, I don't get a good feel that they can beat Missouri right now. I
Really?
mean, I just think it's straight up. I think, and that's tough because they need a win real bad. They played, what are they, 3-3 right now, and
Yeah,
they've lost three in a row.
yeah.
But Missouri is going to come back up. They at that Alabama game, I just think Missouri is going to come back, and I just don't think Auburn can win this game head up. It's almost pretty much a 1.5 point. That to me, that's toss up time. Field goal will win it for either team. But I mean, unless things, I didn't see enough positive things. Jackson Arnold, he's not a terrible quarterback, but
No.
there's nothing special. I don't see. He's not as accurate as I would want him to be on short throws. He's not elusive. So when he scrambles, if he's tough enough to make a play, if it's wide, if it's open, but
Right.
he can't make people miss and spin and all the things that an elusive quarterback, dual threat. I wouldn't call him a dual threat quarterback. He's a good, solid quarterback. But unless you have the best athletes at every position, that good, solid quarterback just gonna get you beat. And
Right.
I'm afraid that's kind of where it is right now with Auburn and their quarterback. He's just a good, solid quarterback. And they don't do enough because they got a couple of great receivers.
Yeah.
Camp Coleman is big time, and Singleton was at Georgia Tech, and
Right.
and they've got to make big plays. And they just threw their best running back off. This is where there's probably some underlying problems. Their captain, their running back that was banged up, they've just dismissed him from the team.
Not good.
Just for private reasons, for personal reasons, then something's not good.
Yeah.
Some kids are talking, kids aren't happy. So you got to pull it together. And this is where a head coach earns his money right now.
It is.
He's got to pull his stuff together because if he doesn't, it can collapse around you.
Absolutely. Again, we'll see how that game plays out. It's a late kick, 7:45 on the plane, so we'll see if they can pull through. I do like the over. That is a game I'll probably be dialed in. Everybody will be watching Alabama, Tennessee. I'll be dialed in on the SEC network, seeing if Auburn can actually score points against Missouri.
I'm pulling for him.
We'll see. Just get me 44, Coach. That's all I need. I need 43.5. Get me over 44, 24-20. Everybody's happy. All right, we'll see if they could do it. You talked Georgia Tech. Let's go to that game in the ACC. Right. I mean, I brought up the Manny Diaz situation, right? And I'm like in between because the mindset of Manny was at Miami and he doesn't want a bigger program because now the pressure's off and he's doing great things with Duke, especially if they get this win on Saturday. He'll be undefeated in the conference, and there's really no pressure in Durham, right? I'm sure if Indiana could throw money and knowing that that's a basketball school, seeing the success of Cooper Flagg last year and obviously number one, if that football program gets humming, they'll get boosters to throw some money at Manny, right?
Yeah, they will. I don't think there's a question, but I'm just saying he was the coordinator at Penn State, so he has contacts up there.
Yep.
I think behind the scenes they'll be working on him. And I'm just saying and I keep thinking these academic schools where there's not the pool of athletes with superior academics is much smaller. I don't know whether you're right or wrong.
Right.
Duke and Stanford, you're never going to be able to recruit everybody that you could at Penn State. I'm just saying, you have to love it there. You love the job that it's doing. They can probably pay, but can you win consistently? I feel like you can pull it off and get you 9, maybe get 10. I don't know how they can. I mean, it's still a very, very tough classroom environment for football players to go through. You might get through with a basketball team that's got a smaller roster, but for all the players you got to get through, they don't have those cupcake classes at Duke. And you're always fighting to have a team equal to others. UVA's always been like that too.
Yep.
It's been a problem. UVA and Duke, they are academic schools, but there's some things that have been done to make it better because money isn't going to make you academic.
Well, I will say, and I want to get your take. The one thing that would make me want to hire Manny Diaz at Penn State specifically is not just because he was the DC there.
Right.
And tell me if I'm wrong. Because we talked about the success of Cignetti, getting the quarterbacks Who does Manny Diaz get? He put $4 million. Darian Mensah was the highest paid transfer quarterback to identify talent,
Right.
to get right. And because we talked, I've said this time and time again. People will say, "Well, James Franklin got a raw deal. He won." Okay, you want to go that route? That's fine. He never really beat Ohio State, but one time back in 2016. The problem I have with that argument is this: it's Penn State. It's a national brand. And for that type of brand recognition, you never had an elite quarterback in your tenure there. Christian Hackenberg with Bill O'Brien, you Trace McSorley, Sean Clifford last year. It was Drew Allen. Penn State has never had, I mean, go back to the days of Todd Blackledge.
Yeah.
I mean, they've all been game managers. There hasn't been one elite quarterback to come out of Penn State and make it in the NFL. And why do I say that's important? Well, you're going up against the likes of Ohio State and Michigan every year. At least Michigan, for the most part, has quarterbacks that made it to the NFL, right? And stepped up.
And Ohio State. That's exactly right.
And Ohio State. And I'll take it one step further. Ohio State is wide receiver U with LSU, right? All the Michael Thomas and Garrett Wilson and all, Marvin Harrison Jr. We could name 50 guys that went to Ohio State from the wide receiver position that made it to the NFL elite. Where's the elite talent for Penn State? O.J. McDuffie back in the. I'm just saying, you have to go back years. Jahan Dotson, Allen Robinson, aren't Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and LSU. In that, how can't you get skilled talent at Penn State if you're James Franklin? I just don't understand.
I think you fall into a trap at Penn State, and you get locked into the big running back, the tight ends,
right?
The physical team that is more physical than it is skill. When today's game, you got to have both. You can just don't look any farther in the Big Ten than Ohio State.
Right.
They and Michigan is a little bit over. They may overdo it, not quite as well as Ohio State in getting the skill that Ohio State has accepted the fact that you got to have power, toughness, and athleticism, but you got to have great skill. And that's what whoever gets it at Penn State, that's what they will have to do. Because I promise you, when James Franklin got that big contract and it said you're going to make $8 billion a year or whatever, you mean all I got to do is be your coach? No, you got to win a championship. Right. That's part of the deal. You got Brian Kelly's got the same deal. You want that kind of money here? Sign dotted line. What do you have to give us? Championship. If you don't, we're going to find somebody else because that's what you buy into that. When you take that money, that's the given. You got to have your eyes wide open, and because that's what they're paying for. Right. And you can see that in Penn State, it is clear as can be. You can win 10 a year, but if you don't beat the right team and win your conference or play for a championship, you ain't won the right 10.
I agree 100%. That's why when we were talking Georgia Tech, Duke, I say, you know what? The more I think about it, maybe Manny is the right guy. You know, maybe, because of what he was doing with Duke. If Duke gets this win coach, I mean, they're going to still, they got knocked around by Illinois. They lost a couple of games, but they're undefeated in the ACC. I mean, they go out and run the table and then knock off Miami in the ACC championship game. He's going to find himself potentially in the college football playoff. I mean, that's incredible.
That's right. And what you got to remember, I don't care if you're Penn State or Ohio State, one, you got to get a coach that can win at the level you want them to win. And two, it's got to be somebody you got a chance to get. I mean, a lot of these coaches are just locked up. Cignetti now is locked up. And so if you can't always get somebody just because you want them, they could be locked into a situation that you can't touch them. So you got to do a good job. You got to know what you're doing. And, and people miss as many times as they hit. And then 4 years later, I'd say at least half of them end up buying out that contract they thought would last forever.
Absolutely. How are we looking at this game, this Duke-Georgia Tech game? Because I was on Georgia Tech last week. And I was, I had to hold on for dear life. And here's another, you want to know how I got the cover against Georgia Tech? Let me tell you what happens. So Georgia Tech jumps out to an 18-0 lead against Virginia Tech. Yeah. I'm laying 14.5, okay? They're winning the game by 21 in the fourth quarter, okay? Virginia Tech in 3 seconds comes down and scores a touchdown with about 4 minutes left in the game. If they kick the extra point, I'm dead to rights.
Right.
They go for 2, Coach. He goes for 2. Why is he going for? Listen, I'm happy he did it, but they go for 2. They don't get it, and Georgia Tech.
I know.
How is that possible? I was so happy.
They knew you had money on the game. That's why. I'm learning more this year when it comes to the back end of these games and how close you can be, but. Close, it ain't horseshoes. It ain't close enough in this business, and you have to really. There's a little luck involved with everything else as well. But now when you get to Georgia Tech and Duke, I'm gonna break it down to one thing. I think both got quarterbacks that are unbelievably good. They both have are riding good streaks, winning streaks. Georgia Tech obviously has to start faster than they've been starting. They've got to find a way to slow down Duke's offense. Their offense is a little bit more productive. If you look at how big they've won against their last 3 SEC schools compared to how big Georgia Tech has, it doesn't look very close. But I'm going to tell you the difference in this game, I believe. When I've got a game like this, and it's come down to a field goal. It's 1.5 points. I'm going with which quarterback is going to get me into the end zone or hold the ball so I don't have to punt. And that, to me, that's Haynes King. If they've got a 2-point lead, and you got to get one more first down to run that clock out, he's going to get it for you. He's going to know whether to hand off, take the ball himself, or make the fake and run around the end. He's going to make all the right decisions. And if he's got to take that last drive and get it down for a field goal or get it down for the touchdown, that's where I've watched him, and that's where I really like him. Now, whether that happens or not, to me, you got 2 really good teams. You got teams that are on a roll. Quarterbacks are really good. One runs a dual threat. The other is a 300-plus thrower that can scramble decently. I just think Haynes King, he understands what every single play needs for that play to be successful, for that series to be successful. And that's why I think, and that's why I'm figuring he's going to find a way to win it in the last 3 minutes.
So I think Duke's defense is a little bit better now. Maybe body of work. They beat up on Collins and Syracuse. That was when Ricky Collins was making the start after Clemson, and they shut down Cal, again, freshman quarterback.
Right.
Maybe I'm not looking at this right, but I still think Duke has the better defense. But I've been so impressed with the rushing attack, to your point of Georgia Tech. Malachi Hosley, that's the other running back outside of Jamal Haynes for Georgia Tech. This guy, if you watch the game on Saturday, Coach, this kid's a pocket rocket. He's got to be about 5'8".
Yeah,
but he comes from 11 yards per carry on Saturday. And that was, you can make the argument Virginia Tech was playing a little bit better at that point, but they abused them. I mean, they utilized everything in that playbook.
Right.
It's going to be, I lean to the over in this game, 60.5, but I guess I'll lay it. I'm not going to bet this game, but if I had to pick, I'll lean it with Duke. I don't love it though in the matchup.
Well, they're favored. I mean, and the numbers tend to go that way. But I just know at the end of a game, as a former coach, I want to know that I've got a guy that knows how to make the right decisions. Because ultimately, I can't call a play that tells him whether to hand off or take the quarterback keep around the edge or to do those kind of things. He's got to make those decisions himself. And Haynes King has done a pretty good job of doing that in a tight ball game. And so it's going to be it's going to be a good one. People don't realize this is going to be one of the better games Saturday. Georgia Tech and Duke.
It's 12 o'clock. It's a
12 o'clock noon game.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a 12 o'clock kick is great. I mean, you'd think they would give a little love to the ACC, right? They didn't get anything. But now we talked about the Clemson game earlier when we broke down the show. Just thoughts about Dabo. I mean, this team has got momentum. They're at 500. Okay, back to baseline. Can we win out the second half of the season and potentially finish this year at 9-3? Any shot? I mean, they would need a miracle, right, to potentially get back into the ACC conference. They're 2-2 in the conference.
Yeah, to me, I've kind of gotten past that. I've said Dabo is going to get this team back on a positive mode, get them on a winning record, going to get them to a bowl game. Can't get back in the hunt for the conference championship game, I don't believe. Can't get back in the college playoffs, I don't believe. What you can get back into is become a winning football team and have a strong finish to this season and get yourself looking forward to making the right decisions next year to improve your team. Now, all that being said, Cade Klubnik may not be able to play or may not be able to play well enough to beat SMU. I was all over Clemson, even when it was, 9.5 or 7? And now it's down to 5.5, I think, because they're worried about him. And I've kind of jumped over on SMU because Kevin Jennings is a heck of a quarterback, and they're a good football team. And I know it's at Clemson, but I don't know that they are. I don't know how good they are without Cade Klubnik. I just don't think they're nearly as good. And SMU is a pretty good football team.
Yeah, 2 home losses last year, 2 home losses this year to obviously LSU and Syracuse. 1 out of conference, 1 in conference. You know, they're 71-7 straight up in Death Valley, but that's dating back to 2015.
Right? Yeah,
the 4 of those losses have come in the last 2 seasons.
That's right. You got to think about when this thing started to slide a little bit. Now because there is a different effect of that stadium in the last couple of years. It's just when you have the big time players better than everybody else, you're always winning home.
I will say this, Coach. They have 2 conference losses, right? You look at their schedule. I'm just going to go through it. SMU undefeated in the conference, so they got to win that.
Right.
They need Duke to knock off Georgia Tech, okay? Because then they face Duke the following week. So if they were able to get the victory over SMU, Duke beats Georgia Tech, then they beat Duke. Now they hand Duke their first conference loss. Then they would need Louisville to knock off the Hurricanes on Friday night because in late November or mid-November, they face Louisville as well. So they would have an opportunity if that breaks their way, where Louisville knocks off Miami, Duke knocks off Georgia Tech, they take care of business on Saturday against SMU, they would only have 2 losses and a head-to-head over all those teams. I'm just saying.
Yeah, is there a possible road? Yeah, there's a possible road, but again, you've got UVA out there too. You've got a lot of games, a lot of season to be played, and I'm just saying right now, I haven't seen all the problems solved at Clemson. They've run the ball 1 game pretty good. The quarterback is banged up. They haven't been a dominant football team. They've beaten the 2 worst scoring teams. They've beaten 2 teams badly. Both those teams are struggling right now. It was a BC and who they beat? They beat BC and somebody else last 2 games.
North Carolina.
North Carolina is terrible. And BC is downright struggling. So you got 2 34-10, 31-10 type of games. But before that, they gave up 38 and lost. And so again, I'm not quite ready to believe that they're magically back to where they're a contender for the conference. But I do think they can come back and have a nice season and get themselves to a bowl.
We talked about Florida State and what they have to do to just stop the bleeding at this point. Stop the bleeding. Put the tourniquet on. Get the W. You said it won't. We talked earlier on the show. It's not going to be easy because of that cross-country trip, right?
Late game.
Sleepy. That's the thing. Wow. We got maybe, 10,000 fans in the stadium for the Cardinal at 7 o'clock, Pacific time. I think that, honestly, I'll just say this. They should absolutely destroy.
They should do it. Absolutely.
They must. By 30.
They must.
This game by 30.
And they must. Because if they're going to turn it around, Stanford is the team to do it against. They are the team that you can outplay them. You've got better athletes. To me, Tommy Castellanos, if you want to solve the problems, score 40 or more. Don't let the defense worry. Just don't score 31. Don't score 32. Score 40 or more, you're going to win the game. It's not going to be that. But now, if the defense will do their job, you won't need all that. But again, it needs to happen this week. It needs to start this week if they're going to have a chance, because they've got to come back in their schedule. I mean, they've got Clemson. They've got Clemson, Florida, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Clemson, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, and Florida. Now, Florida's a non-conference game, but for them to get to now, they're talking about getting to a bowl is what they're trying to talk about.
So I want to. We talked about like what's that level for Florida State?
Yeah.
Watch this: 6 or 7 wins,
Right.
either or, but wins over Alabama and Clemson. He sells that to the fan base.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean they feel like there's something to grow on.
right?
Now, like I
Am I
said,
wrong? Does he keep his job 6 or 7 wins?
I told
with
you,
those two?
I know a lot about Florida State because my dad was a coach
Right.
there when they had nothing, and
Right.
they have spent a lot of money that they have not had tons of money in the bank. I told you it was a girls' college till 1950. I mean,
Right.
a lot of your most wealthy people are the blue bloods, of the University of Florida.
Right.
They've spent 180 million on a stadium right now. They spent an unbelievable amount on their head coach. They bought into the NIL situation and the 2 new coordinators they just paid for. And so I'm just saying is they don't want to have to make that move this year. Now the fans can force it, but I don't think they've got 2 or 3 big enough boosters to say do it or else. Now you lose this game Saturday against Stanford, and it starts to go south. They won't have a choice. They won't have no choice. But I do believe they can pull it together and find a way to win this game because I think they'll find a way to win this game and get them at least heading in the right direction.
Right. There's 2 games we haven't talked about that we talked about earlier, and Notre Dame USC. I think Notre Dame should clean their clock. I mean, we just talked about Notre Dame. What do you think about Notre Dame, big picture, Coach? What do you think of Notre Dame?
I mean, I personally, I think they're getting better every week. They're not a great defense like they were last year. I think their quarterback is the guy that they can build their future in. And I think if they get this game, I think they run the table. And the way
they're going to be in. They're going to
be in. Look at the way people. They want Notre Dame in the playoffs. That's just, I don't care if it's money or it's just the history of the game. They want Notre Dame in, and they might not necessarily be deserving to be in. But I'm saying is if they continue to win and knock on, got to beat Southern Cal, and I do think they will. I think they'll beat Southern Cal. It's got to win by 10. It's 9. It was 9.5. I think it's still 9.5 that they've got to win. But I do think they'll win the football game. They're better too. They still play really good defense. Their quarterback is solid. They've got to make sure they don't let explosive plays hurt them with that quarterback and that wide receiver Lemon.
Right.
They've got to make sure they don't let that get hit them for explosive plays.
It also benefits them that Miami and A&M are undefeated.
Right. Exactly. Good point.
Miami and A&M drop a game this weekend, and let's say they're fighting for their playoff lives, then I think Notre Dame is in trouble, right? Then they have to, there's no doubt they'll have to win. If we have major upsets this weekend prior to the Notre Dame game, meaning like at 12 o'clock, if something crazy happens and we have, all of a sudden all these teams are getting knocked off, then or Friday night, Louisville knocks off Miami. Whoa. All of a sudden, now things change, right? Arkansas knocks off A&M. Wait a second now.
Hey, Joe, what's this what-if stuff? It's going to happen to somebody. It's only happening every week. We just don't know which one it's going to happen to, but somebody is going to get knocked off that we say, no way.
If I told you out of all the big games that we discussed, which one would you say from an upset perspective has you nervous? Is it the Ole Miss Georgia? Is it
I think it's more Tennessee, Alabama. I think Tennessee beating Alabama outright would be. I could see that happening before I don't see Ole Miss beating Georgia in Athens. I think Georgia's had their one loss at home. I think they've got a little overall better football team. I could see Tennessee getting hot and beating Alabama, but now I don't believe it's going to happen. I'm betting against that. But I'm saying is if there was one that could happen out there, because dang it, I'm learning to be I'm learning to appreciate 60 or 70% success rate. I can't figure them all out, but that one wouldn't shock me if Tennessee got hot. You got to remember they lost overtime to Georgia. Was it overtime or just the last play?
No, it was right.
No, it was 40. Yeah, it was just.
It was overtime, right? Tennessee was 44-41.
But that's their only loss of the season against a heck of a good Georgia team. And I guarantee Alabama's not going to be any better than Georgia. But I'm saying is on the road, I don't know. I'm not picking them. Right now I'm picking Tennessee with the points. But I think
Right.
Alabama wins it right now as far as that one's concerned there. And as far as the game is, I will say this, and we're not going to talk about it tonight, but hang with Texas Tech. They of all the teams there's only one team in the Big 12 that could actually move to the very could win through the conference playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it's Texas Tech because the players they got. But anyway,
Now,
that's another day. That's another show.
I'll just say this: I do like Arizona State with the points, but I was going to bring up because there's not breaking news about Texas Tech, but I'll read to you. So you know that they have a tradition where they throw tortillas at the home game.
Oh yeah.
So now, if they're the first time they do it, right? This is coming from the AD, Kirby Holcutt.
I know Kirby.
So first time is a warning, right? Second time, the team gets knocked, 15-yard penalty and $100,000 fine. Now, here
they've got
the money. Right? So you think the fans? But here's the thing, Coach: the fans aren't going to care that the school's going to be tacked on with $100K.
Not one bit. That's it. They've got their tradition, and that's what we're going to do. We're sticking with it. But again, they ought to be careful. They ought to be thoughtful about what they're doing. But Texas Tech, they've opened the checkbook out there, and they're getting football players, and the coach is doing a great job. They've won. What's their average margin of victories? 35.3, number one in the country. They're beating everybody good now. I'm telling you, it'll be interesting.
They're not beating teams; they're smoking teams.
Yeah, I know.
And Joey and I follow each other. I told Joey, I said, listen, I'm a college football purist. I think they have one of the best uniforms in college football. I would put the Texas Tech uniforms, Coach.
I love it.
With the likes of Alabama, LSU, Penn State, Notre Dame, all those classic blue blood programs. And I know LSU isn't a blue blood technically, no. But what I'm saying is Alabama, all the old school. I think Texas Tech has phenomenal uniforms. But I tweeted at him and I told him, Coach, I've been a fan of Texas Tech dating back from the days of Byron Hansport and Zebby Lethbridge. Throw some love my way. Come on now.
You remember the touchdown pass they threw against Texas to win the game on the last play of the game? I was broadcasting that game for ABC.
Who was that? Graham Harrell that threw?
Graham Harrell was a quarterback, not a great NFL, but a college guy. And the receiver made an unbelievable catch and went in. It was the old rule: don't overthrow a deep ball. He underthrew it, and he came back. And anyway, I'm kind of a big Rodney Allison was my running back coach at Auburn years ago, but he was a quarterback at Texas Tech way back. That was in the 70s. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of Texas Tech.
I'll just say this about Texas Tech: 47 points per game, allowing only 12.2 points per game. And the matchup is Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State. Very good home team last 2 years, 9-0 at home. I am taking the points with Arizona State, but we'll see how it plays out. Coach and I will be back next week.
There we go.
Another huge slate of games, Coach. So we'll be breaking it down next week. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the games. We'll see you.
So long.